Hello and welcome to the lesson on setting, style, tone, and mood. Setting: the time, place, physical details, and circumstances in which a situation occurs. Settings include the background, atmosphere, or environment in which characters live and move, and usually include physical characteristics of the surroundings. This definition comes from the All-American Glossary of Literary Terms. Every story has to take place somewhere. Everything about a setting is important, so you have to pay attention to all of it. The time could be day or night, could be the actual time on the clock, a year, a time period, a significant event. The place could be a city, a state, a house, a hospital, a car, anything. The description of the place matters. A red room with antique furniture, a broken down car in a desert. Environment or weather: scorching hot in a desert, a blizzard in a cabin in the woods, on a boat in a storm, a sunny hot day with fluffy white clouds, or a damp and rainy in a swamp. Economics and social class: your story could be set in a poor village with modest people, a mansion on a hill with wealthy people, a hotel with shady people around, or a quiet home with little children. Setting matters. Why is it important? The setting of a story helps the reader make sense of the plot. It allows the reader to better understand the characters and their motivations. It can point to the tone and mood, and it can help reveal the theme of the story. So let's try it. The wind blew fierce and strong, and it pelted them with bits of sticks, sand, and little rocks. Juana and Kino gathered their clothing tighter about them and covered their noses and went out into the world. The sky was brushed clean by the wind, and the stars were cold in a black sky. The two walked carefully, and they avoided the center of the town where some sleeper in a doorway might see them pass, for the town closed itself in against the night, and anyone who moved about in the darkness would be noticeable. Find a quote from the passage that describes this aspect of setting: the time. Same passage. The wind blew fierce and strong, and it pelted them with bits of sticks, sand, and little rocks. Juana and Kino gathered their clothing tighter about them, and covered their noses and went out into the world. The sky was brushed clean by the wind, and the stars were cold in a black sky. The two walked carefully, and they avoided the center of the town, where some sleeper in a doorway might see them pass, for the town closed itself in against the night, and anyone who moved about in the darkness would be noticeable. Find a quote from the passage that describes this aspect of setting: place. Same passage. The wind blew fierce and strong, and it pelted them with bits of sticks, sand, and little rocks. Juana and Kino gathered their clothing tighter about them, and covered their noses, and went out into the world. The sky was brushed clean by the wind, and the stars were cold in a black sky. The two walked carefully, and they avoided the center of the town, where some sleeper in a doorway might see them pass, for the town itself closed itself in against the night, and anyone who moved about in the darkness would be noticeable. Find a quote from the passage that describes this aspect of setting: environment and weather. The wind blew fierce and strong, and it pelted them with bits of sticks, sand, and little rocks. Juana and Kino gathered their clothing tighter about them and covered their noses and went out into the world. The sky was brushed clean by the wind, and the stars were cold in a black sky. The two walked carefully, and they avoided the center of the town, where some sleeper in a doorway might see them pass, for the town itself closed itself in against the night, and anyone who moved about in the darkness would be noticeable. Find a quote from the passage that describes this aspect of setting: social and/or economic status. The author's style. Style is a manner of presenting material, including usage, punctuation, organization, and tone. By manipulating these stylistic factors, different meanings are achieved. Authors use style and play with language to creatively express the meaning of a text. Sometimes they use quotations, questions, or visual formatting of a text to add to the meaning. Authors also format a text a certain way to achieve stylistic purposes. Style. Style is the way the author uses words, phrases, and sentences. The author's personal word choice or vocabulary, types of sentences, point of view from which the text is told, organization of the text. All four components will reveal his or her style. So when analyzing an author's style, we need to consider point of view, first, second, third limited, or third omniscient, formal or informal writing, word choice, sentence structure, jargon, lingo, and slang, organization, structure of a text. Think author's purpose. We'll discuss these formats in more depth later. Level of complexity in the writing. Sentence structure, vocabulary, writing devices, figurative language, limited versus detailed information, and the overall tone. The author's attitude towards his or her subject matter. By using these features in writing, different meanings of the context, of the content, what the story and or text is about, are shown to the audience. Style, formal versus informal. Look and see which example shows informal style. Example 1. Dear Sir, after examining your job description, I feel I am an excellent candidate. I have many years of experience performing these specific duties. My resume is attached. Please read it over at your convenience and contact me if you have questions. Sincerely, Andrew Mayer. Example 2. Hey Sarah, what's going on tonight? Call me before you guys leave, okay? Beth. Tone. A challenging but essential task of the reader is to determine the author's attitude, which is related to the author's tone. The reader must determine this aspect of a passage by analyzing the author's perspective and point of view, how the author thinks and feels about a particular subject. In speaking, one's gestures, voice inflections, pauses, and facial expressions can reveal a speaker's attitude toward the subject matter. However, because none of those things can be experienced by reading a work or text, an author's attitude or tone has to be inferred from less obvious clues. You must closely read an author's writing to notice the clues and details he or she may reveal through words. There are several steps that may help you determine the author's attitude. Tone. Tone is simply the author's attitude toward the subject. You can recognize the tone and/or attitude by the language and/or word choice the author uses. His or her language will reveal his or her perspective, opinion, point of view. That is, whether it is positive or negative about the subject. Tone must be inferred through the use of descriptive words. An example. The tone of this passage is ominous, suggesting a little bit of fear or foreboding. Words like caution, dark, and looming lead readers to the tone. Let's look at it. The girls were playing in the pond, splashing each other and trying to catch fish with their hands. They were having fun, but kept looking over their shoulders at the looming forest. The long grass of the field kept moving, and they sort of felt like they were being watched. About a half hour passed, and still the girls kept checking the field for movement. It seemed like a pair of dark eyes was on them. They even considered going back inside, but that would mean homework time, so they continued splashing, but with caution now. Their eyes hardly left the field. Look and see what you think the tone is of this passage. Finally, one of the girls pointed to the grass and giggled. Meow! A cat sat on the edge of the field and licked its paw. They did indeed have company. The girls ran over to the cat and pet his belly. They laughed, and the cat sauntered back to the field. What is the tone of this passage? Mood. The atmosphere of a work of literature. Mood is how the reader feels, the emotions that result from a reader's understanding. It is the emotional situation a work of literature creates for a reader. Mood can be developed through tone, theme, setting, diction, and/or style. Here's an example. What mood is created in this image? 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 To recap, setting, the when, where, what of a story that provides reader with the time, place, physical details, and circumstances in which a situation occurs. Style, the unique way in which writers write. Tone, An author's attitude about the subject, content about which he or she is writing. Mood, the way the reader, that's you, feels about the subject or content about which he or she is reading. The atmosphere of a work that is influenced by style, tone, and setting. If you have any questions, please take them back to your teacher.